But at the same time, I'm going to make this very clear.
I've been waiting for a long time, waiting all week.
But we all have Valdosta State ties, which is the reason why we decided to get this podcast a try.
Cairo? Yeah.
Cairo, yes.
We don't say that.
New Jersey?
This is Title Town. We win championships.
The fire in my loins.
That'll be later on in the podcast, folks.
I can't wait.
He made a promise to God. He said,
You allowed 28 points against a team that was essentially playing like a lucky person playing Madden, going for 2 after every touchdown.
and I think God has given him his end of the bargain.
The gigantic metaphorical middle finger.
The dirty Myrtle is exactly how it sounds.
And this is the Inferno Blazer Sports Show.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Inferno Blazer Sports Show. This is the last episode of the semester. My name is Kyle Hawthorne. Rounding out the table, we got the voice of VSU basketball on the road, Mr. Jack Calhoun. How you doing today, Jack?
Oh, no place I'd rather be. Go Blazers.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Across the table from him, Jalen Scott, the PA announcer for VSU volleyball. How you doing, Jalen?
Doing good, man. And like Jack said, no place I'd rather be.
Ain't that the truth?
Go Blazers too, right?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yep.
let's make
Across
sure.
from me, the enforcer, Mr. Chris Mercer. How you doing today, man?
What's the deal? Pickles is everything kosher. What's going on?
Okay.
Why you gotta start with some weird stuff?
I don't know what that
Chris, we're
is.
30 seconds in
Y'all
before you
never
come
heard
with
of
some weird...
kosher pickles?
Yeah.
We're not talking about...
That was the. It was
we're
the
all having professional...
Shout out to Huggy
We've got
Lowdown, one of my
professionals
favorite.
around the table, and Chris
Yeah.
like, you want to talk about some kosher pickles?
Professionals.
Why
Didn't
you
you
talk
say
about
you
some
were
pickles?
pulling out one episode, Jack Calhoun?
Yes,
What do you
and
mean
you-
it's a profession? Anyway, we have a very, very special guest in the cut
that's
today.
right. Right next to me, we got the rookie, Adam Black of Blazer Sports Media. How you doing today, Adam?
I am doing great. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast. Heard a lot, but I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, welcome to the chaos.
Yeah, this is
The
chaos.
utter insanity. that
Yeah,
is this show.
we are back, man. We got a lot to discuss, man, and we got
A lot.
Especially in such short time too, because our last episode was
Last week.
uploaded literally last week.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we
Yeah.
talked about that big packed out weekend, and it did not disappoint.
Yeah, but disappoint is definitely the name on the marquee right now.
We're gonna get to that in a moment,
Yeah.
but let's first get to something on a bit more positive note. Let's talk some basketball that happened over this past weekend. So Blazer basketball, Lady Blazers and Men Blazers took on 2 GSC opponents on Friday and Sunday, Delta State and Mississippi College. Over the weekend, Lady Blazers swept the weekend series, winning against both Delta State and Mississippi College by 20 points plus, 77-57 against Delta State and 77-44 against Mississippi College. Some really great games there for the Lady Blazers. Jack, you got the stat sheets right there.
Yeah, and obviously I may sound a little biased considering that I travel with the ladies and I commentate them, but I want to give a shout out to Emma Martin, the guard. I mean, she went 4 of 8 from 3. I mean, I think you can all agree with me here. If you're shooting more than 40% from 3, I mean, you're gonna do very well. You're gonna win a lot of games. I mean, that's Steph Curry numbers there, really.
Definitely.
I mean, Victoria, getting down there on the board, getting a couple boards as well. I got to commend Lily Long. She's getting 5 rebounds as well. I mean, that's it's great, especially in 20 minutes of play. But you love to see them get a commanding victory. I mean, in the first quarter alone, Valdosta State outscored Delta State 23-5. And then when you look at Mississippi College on Sunday, they outscored them 23-9 as well. I mean, Coach D is really working with them in terms of scoring and whatnot, and they're really making a good push to really contend for the Gulf South Conference this season. I really believe they have a chance to.
And I think we could definitely agree with that. Now we're gonna go to, because Adam, Chris, and I were at that game. We were all working camera that game. So we're going to start with Adam here. Which camera were you working that one? Was that camera 3 or 4?
I was 5, actually.
You were 5. That's
Yes,
right. Oh,
yes.
you were 5 for the Mississippi College game. So
Right.
you were
Delta,
courtside.
yeah, I was 6 on Delta State.
Yeah, for 6 for Delta State. So we're going to talk the Delta State game first, and we're kind of going to go, the 3 of us here. Adam, what did you see out of the Blazers?
Well, honestly,
Lady Blazers that game.
I think both games, one of the big things I noticed is Victoria Canasio down low in the paint. She played a great game.
She does. She plays great down on the board.
I remember she put a great move on there to get a nice bucket, and we were always going on heads, just going, "Whoa! Did you see that?" Like, it was she's played amazing. Like you said, Emma Martin, 50% from the 3-point line against Delta State. this women's team. Another thing I noticed, the whole team gets rotated in, and they can all make buckets, right? There's playmakers on the bench and in the starting five. So, like Coach said, I remember seeing the interview after the game. I believe it was the Mississippi game. Actually, she said every player on this roster can play, right? And they can, when they're on the floor, nothing's bad gonna happen with whoever you're going against, whoever you put in the game.
And this is also considering they're down 3 players to my Francis, Khalifa Ford, and India. They're down 3.
And they're still able to dominate conference play. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, when they're able to really dominate in the paint like they were when Aisha Curry, especially in the Mississippi College game, like you were seeing how much Mississippi had a tough time dealing with both Encarnacion and Curry in the paint, and it was truly the difference in that game. And when they were double teaming her, they were able to get out to the 3-point land and able to make their shots.
And I also want to commend them as well for the Lady Blazers shooting 50% from the field. I mean, it's hard to lose a basketball game when you're making every other shot. I mean, it's really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing something right in all regards.
But also for the men's side, though, in the Delta State game, and this was something that I noticed, there were particular hecklers on my side of the court because I was working camera too.
That's because all the haters are coming after you, Chris. That's all.
We can hear them through your headset. We can hear them through your headset.
Yeah, I know. Like they could hear through my headsets, and there's so many work lore stories that we'll probably get into, especially with that football game. But we'll talk about that.
Oh,
in
the
a
whole
minute.
that
whole day.
There's a lot
happened. A lot of first.
But for the Delta State game, to be more specific, it's just like the hecklers were just getting at. You're really getting at Delta State and just number 3 in particular on Delta State. And I wish I can pull up this really quickly, but my eyes are deceiving me. It felt like he was using that as momentum as Valdosta was really outplayed in that game. And it felt like they had a 10-point lead at one point in there. And it just felt like they were losing that grip. And when Delta State got hot, they got hot and they were making them in bunches. And that was the reason why that game was just as close. And they had that game won, but Delta State just came storming back in that second half and was able to escape.
I was going to say, if I remember correctly, that's the first time we've lost to Delta State here in Valdosta in, oh my gosh, probably 10 plus years, right?
Around that, like 8 to 10 years. I can't remember specifically what it was. It was one of the like the Blazer trivia thing that they now do for the basketball games, which I think is pretty neat. But it was around 8 to, like Jack said, around 8 to 10 years since Delta State has beaten VSU at the complex.
Yeah, and also for the name of number 3 for Delta State, Chris Terrell was his name. In 37 minutes, he had 30 points, 8 of 10 from 3.
Wow.
Yeah,
he was on fire late in the game.
They were heckling him so much in that second half. I mean, he was cooking in that second half, and I think he was the big part of why they were able to escape with the win. But on Sunday, you definitely could see that this team definitely learned from their mistakes in there. But Braxton Williams had 30 in the win yesterday on Sunday, along with him going 6-8 from the free throw line and 11 for 15 overall. He was the huge spark for the Blazers, and he was put into the starting lineup, and he definitely made was worth every minute of his 28 minutes out on the floor. He definitely just played well. Was a huge reason why they were able to win, because they were struggling from the free throw line in that game. And
they were,
yeah. They at one point they were like 10 to 21, and at some points in the second half.
But frankly, honestly, for Braxton Williams, I believe at the end of the first half he had 15 points. So he was the Blazers' leading scorer through that first half. But that first half was probably the roughest this team has looked starting out a first half. Now you say, I am absolutely not criticizing the team when I say this, but the men Blazers team, we saw this a lot last year, how they started really slow. They started on not such a good run. They're still trying to work out kinks in their system. And it's a good system. Coach Helfer is a really good system with the players, especially with all the transfers he's got this year. It works, but it usually goes off to a slow start, and then it starts ramping up and it starts building on itself as you go out, as you progress through the game. So again, like I said, we were down 16-2 to start off the first half, and then we eventually came back to win it 77-69.
I was going to say, and I was there on the call when the Valdosta State played Lee a few weeks ago. That happened in the league game as well. They got down 16-4, and they couldn't play catch up enough. I mean, they got down early. The GA David Peck, he told me, he's like, basketball's a game of runs, and sometimes you get them, sometimes you just don't.
Yeah, the biggest thing at the beginning of that Mississippi College game was, one, they weren't getting rebounds, and two, they weren't knocking down free throws. I mean, there was multiple possessions where Mississippi College is getting off 3-4 shots, right? And
you can't have that.
You can't have that. You got to get your defensive rebounds, and then of course you got to take advantage at the free throw line. Like, especially in the early second half, like it was a really close game, and you got to have, especially in clutch time, got to have those free throws.
And speaking of those free throws, Mississippi College went 18 for 22. Valdosta State went 21 for 35. Now, another thing to note here, we ended up getting most of our free throws when Mississippi College fouled us into double bonus with 9:16 left to go in the second half. That is a lot of time for even the smallest infractions to be called, and all of a sudden you're at the line shooting two.
Yeah, and the reason why Braxton was really able to dominate as he was, and he was able to drive because they know that they were in the bonus and they couldn't risk getting into foul trouble. So that was a huge point of emphasis in that second half. Let us move over to football, and I know Kyle has been waiting to analyze this.
Well, actually, real quick though, before we go to Kyle though, for our Lady Blazers and our Men Blazers, both teams are going to be on the road to Carrollton, Georgia, to play West Georgia on the 7th for that Red Clay rivalry series. It's going to be a fun one.
Yes, it will.
And then they stay on the road for a Tennessee weekend series at Christian Brothers in Memphis on the 15th, and at Union in Jackson, Tennessee on the 17th. Jack, you're going to be on the call for those games?
I will be on the call for all three. I actually just got our text for meal plans and whatnot today.
Exactly. So if you can get on the radio call, take a listen to Jack. He would most certainly appreciate it. We all support our hosts here. We hope you have a great broadcast.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Speaking of Jack, we getting ready to go into football, and I would be remiss not to say that you were color commentary for this playoff game this past weekend. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you,
that
sir.
is huge for you. And I wish it was a better game for our Blazers.
I think Valdosta State does too.
35-7, the final. VSU knocked out of the playoff. Still a great year, but man, it was true. It felt like Valdosta was just exposed in the elements, and we will talk about the elements because let me tell you, the rain was falling before, during, and after, and it was a downpour.
Rough day there at Bazemore.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Kyle, go forth, man.
Yeah, amongst all the rain and the dreariness, we're done in the quarterfinals. I mean, I think everybody in this room that was on the show last week, we all kind of really overlooked Lenoir-Rhyne. Yeah. And I did too. I really did overlook them because we was sitting there saying, who are we facing in the semifinals? Where are we going? And, I believe the team did a little bit too, but, the rain definitely had something to do with it. I mean, VSU is a pass-first offense.
Yeah.
And they just really couldn't pass effectively because of the rain, and they just didn't have the run game.
Yeah.
I mean, we have always been a kind of an air raid offense, but you think about 2 years ago, I mean, we were the air raid offense with all those passing yards, but we also had 3 players over 1,000 yards. And you really just cannot win a championship if you are only one-dimensional or two-dimensional, something like that. You can't just have the defense and the passing game. You've got to have the defense, the passing game, and the run game, and we just did not have that. We had the whole running back by committee with multiple players going out there, and you really never knew who was going to be on the field.
Yeah, between Flowers and Chaney.
Exactly.
Well, I'll say with that as well. I mean, Lenoir-Rhyne proved that, you don't have to have a pass-first offense to win and dominate. I mean, they came out there and they had a running back by committee, and they ran all over the Blazers.
Yeah, 307 yards rushing for Lenoir-Rhyne as a team.
I mean, that proves that, as the long adage says, if you can run the ball with success, if you can find more yards of play, I mean, you're unstoppable. Yeah. And I mean, Lenoir-Rhyne proved that. I mean, I feel like the rain did not help Valdosta State, obviously, because, it made it harder for the ball to get gripped. I mean, obviously, with all the fumbles and turnovers that, each side had, but I mean, at the end of the day, Lenoir-Rhyne played old-fashioned football, and that's what won, and that's part of the reason why they're going to the semifinal.
Exactly.
When Sammy is going 14 for 35 in a game and under 50% in terms of completions, it's going to be a long day. And that second quarter was the true turning point. And we were working in the studio, and I mean in the booth, and
I couldn't believe it.
That big moment for me really was after scoring the first touchdown of the game in the second quarter. The Bears blocked the Blazer punt, setting them up on the VSU 17-yard line. They score, and in my eyes, the game was decided there mainly because of momentum. Mm-hmm. And I remember I turned to Chris and Taylor, our GA in the booth. I was like, "This game is over. This game is over. The momentum is too much." And in reality, it was a little bit more of a flip than what I really saw in kind of like the pregame time, warming up. I really saw that VSU was really hyped up, and they was really hyped up to play, and it looked like Lenoir-Rhyne was kind of just there. Yeah, but when it came time to play, they came out and they played ferociously, and they beat our ass.
Yeah.
They beat our
Yeah. And especially their defensive tackle, because Sammy was trying to roll away from the pressure and after that 14-0 hole, and he was able to catch the interception, and you could see it. That was my moment for me where I was like, when their defensive tackle is able to make catches before our wide receivers can, we are in a load of trouble.
Yeah,
so obviously that was huge. But just Jack, do you want to say something, Adam? I was just stunned at the way that this team looked, especially in the elements and in the rain. And we can't use that as an excuse. You know, they had to play in it too, and they played it well. And not being able to run the football all year,
and really the offensive play calling was just. It was a little conservative.
A little suspect. Kind of taking us
obviously,
back
you have to adjust a little bit due to the rain, but that was, like you said, a little too conservative.
Yeah, it's just
obviously that's been the whole story, is the heavy downpour and taking away that essentially taking away the BK Smith and Sammy Edwards connection, which has really been the driving for this offense the entire season.
Exactly.
Not having that.
And we barely escaped last round with Delta State. It was a good win. It was something very memorable, but at the end of the day, if you're really just scraping by in the early rounds, then you're not really going to do much in the later rounds.
It's not sustainable.
Exactly.
You can use that. You could use that as momentum, but it's not a very stable source. That's not something you can realistically build upon as your driving force for the next couple rounds we just barely scrape by the team that we won 62-41 against, or that we won by one possession, that we beat the same team that we shared the conference with. Yeah. And then to go on to the next round, that kind of momentum's not sustainable. At least I think.
Kind of avenging that loss with Delta State, it was very, very bad for this team, I believe, just because it was like, hey, we got them back. We're the GSC champions now because we beat them when it mattered. And, they think they're hot stuff.
Yeah.
And then they just get beat in the next round in the quarterfinals against what I've been calling is the definition of a D2 school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this, though, but the big point in this game was truly the rain. And as all of us that were all out there for this game, and whether working behind in the camera or in the booth.
Oh, man, it was miserable.
Yeah.
That is one of the worst rain games
shout out to Jamie for the plexiglass. Really saved our notes.
Shout out to Jamie. And
shout out to me. I put that up.
Kyle. And shout out to Kyle and all of us, Blazer Sports Media that do some great work during the football season and all that, set up for football into the wee hours of the morning of game days every single week for every home game. So they much love to all of them. But
also, I gotta put this out there. I don't think I shared this in the group chat or not, but it's the first broadcast in the dozens of broadcasts I've ever done with Jamie that he didn't have a note of me saying I sound like a homer. First time. So
nice.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
Well, all I'll really say about this is Blazer football finishes the season 12-2. The same record we had in 2021. But it was a huge turnaround from the 5-6 season they had last year, to come out here. And I won't comment on the teams they played because, I believe our strength of schedule was a little bit weaker this time around. But, 12-2 is 12-2.
Exactly.
It was a huge
Considering where it was
turnaround.
last year, yeah.
It very well may have saved Coach Jackson's job. You know, I by no means was I think he was going to get fired if they didn't have a good season this year.
And you even said it yourself. It's literally in our intro. If you go back to our intro, you say this is Titletown. We win championships, or you get out of town.
Exactly. And Jalen, I really wish you would have left in that last part of that, because this is Titletown. It is, but if you don't win, you go home.
Yeah.
We win championships here, or you leave.
Exactly. I actually remember Coach Jackson. I came here on a junior day visit a couple years ago, and I actually remember Coach Jackson, saying that in the gym. He has the whole presentation about beating West Georgia and winning championships and all that. But it's funny. It's funny.
I remember those days, the recruiting trail, sending out all the pictures of the rings and all that good stuff. But listen, the season's over. I feel bad for the players, really, especially for the seniors, because I know what it's like to end a season when you really don't think you're going to. I believe there was always a chance for us to lose in the semifinals. Personally, that's what I thought, was that we'll probably win the semifinal round and lose in the championship to Colorado Mines, but there's still a real possibility that we lose in the semifinals. Nobody thought we was going to lose to Lenoir-Rhyne. The players probably didn't either, and they was probably in practice this week saying, hey, at the very least, we got one more week. Because I've been in that situation. I remember my junior year of high school, we come in first round of the playoffs against a team, and we was like, we're going on the road next week. We're going to lose that game, but at least we got one more week with the guys. And it just didn't work out that way, and it just got stripped away so fast. I know what it feels like for the players, and I really do hurt for them. But as a person that used to be involved with the football program, I'm going to be very honest with you, gentlemen. Certain people within that program, they deserve this loss just because of really how I know them and how my history with them. I'm happy this happened to them. I hope this is an eye-opening opportunity for them to realize that you can't have a bully culture and have just a bad culture and expect to win games. I was actually speaking to an anonymous source. I believe it was Friday night. And that source is not in this room, and I won't disclose his name. But he basically just gave some insight to the team chemistry or lack thereof of the football team. And basically what he told me was we had a bunch of Division I transfers come in, and we had a lot of talent on this team. This was probably one of the most talented Blazer teams that we've had in a very, very long time. But they did not have the team chemistry to win a championship.
Yeah, and then relying on talent can only take you so far.
Exactly. Like
the Pittsburgh Steelers could tell you a thing about that.
Exactly.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
But when you have
you lose to Arizona,
when you have
don't get me started.
A certain position group, and again, I will not say that when you say that an entire position group is planning on transferring out at the end of the year, that is not good. That is not good for the program. That is not good for the university at all. But with that said, I had to make my peace with that. We're going to go to a break, and then we'll get into some Division I football talk. This has been the Blazer Sports Show.
The Inferno Blazer Sports Show.
That thing.
Exactly. But at the same time, I'm going to make this very clear. If you're not tuning into the Inferno, you're missing out on a fun time. Based in the heart of Titletown, USA in Valdosta, Georgia, 4 Valdosta State students come together to discuss Blazer athletics and other topics in and out of the sports realm. Catch me, Chris, Kyle, and Jack on all of the platforms that the Inferno is streaming on. And be sure to check out our Instagram at the Inferno BSS. Again, that is at the Inferno BSS. And now, back to the show.
Ho. Y'all thought you was gonna get out of this video, get out of this podcast, and not subscribe? Hit the subscribe button. And hey, Uncle C told you to subscribe. Subscribe. Welcome back to this train wreck of a show called The Inferno.
You sure you're not the train wreck with that intro?
No, that would be Ohio State. But speaking of college football Division I, the college football playoff is officially signed, sealed, and delivered. We know the 4 teams that will be fighting for a national title under this format for the final time in 2023 before it expands next year. Number 1 is the Michigan Wolverines with an impressive conference championship win over Iowa and a shutout. They will also be joined by Washington, who is number 2. Number 3 is Texas. And number 4, controversially, wrongfully,
correct,
the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, how did we get here? Michigan won their conference game, as we mentioned before, and they are unbeaten. They were going to get in the number 1 because Bama,
it
Bama
sounds
beat
logical.
Georgia.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That would make sense, right?
Then Washington, they beat Oregon in
same
the
thing.
final Pac-12 game.
Pac-12 championship. Before
championship
they
game.
become the Pac-2.
Yeah. And then Texas, although they have one loss, they won their conference game, their conference championship game. But Alabama gets in, even though they have their one loss, and they did beat Georgia. However,
That's true.
it does leave out the one team that we have avoided for a second. And you're like, well, where is Florida State? And why?
Wrongfully out of the playoff.
Yeah, they are out. They are the first and only undefeated conference champion to not make the college football
That's actually
playoff.
not true. The first Power Five.
Power
Five,
Five,
yeah.
yeah.
The teams that matter, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last unbeaten
was UCF,
was
and I
UCF.
believe it was 2017.
Yeah,
17,
2017.
yeah,
and that
because they claim that
It was the year, I
title.
was going to say, it's the year Alabama also undeservingly got in the playoff.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't Bama go win the title?
They did.
next
They
year?
did.
So-
They made the most of their opportunities.
Yeah, and so as one man put it, we got to start somewhere with this. We know that Florida State got
Oh, they got screwed.
Absolutely.
With no
Yeah,
rule.
they got screwed.
So who wants to start in
Oh,
their
I would
rant?
love to start.
All right,
I have
Jack, go
several
right
points.
ahead.
All right,
All
so
right,
first
Jack,
off-
you're leading off.
All right, so I would just like to point out, obviously, I need to preface this because I know people are going to be like, oh, you sound biased when I say this. I am a Georgia Bulldogs fan in heart, yes. Okay, I don't like Alabama, yes. But this is strictly from a unbiased standpoint. This is looking at how the committee should view everything. First off, this is not a playoff. This is an invitational. Even though it's going to 12 teams, it's still an invitational. If they're going to have a playoffs, what they need to do is do one of the few things the NFL does right, have standards, have divisions or conferences, however you want to call them. And if you do this and you meet this criteria, you make it. None of this voting, so that way that this exact situation doesn't happen forward. Is what it is. Second off, Michigan and Washington absolutely deserve to be there. They won all their games and won their conference championship. I have no problem with those two being in
That's
there.
fair.
And here's my thing. Here's where I'll go next. Texas. I have no problem with Texas being in there. And people are like, oh, you're mad Georgia didn't make it. No, Georgia didn't deserve to make it. Georgia proved that they didn't get to go to the playoff because they lost to Alabama. Now, personally, and I believe I can show you several points throughout the game on Saturday that Georgia was the better team, but Alabama made better of their opportunities. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. That being said, Texas, I have no problem with them getting in there. They should be at 4 because Florida State literally at a Power 5 level did exactly what Michigan and exactly what Washington did, and then basically got slighted because what was the guy named Boo Raggedy? What was the guy's name at the?
I don't
What's the guy's
remember.
name? What's the guy at the play?
Hold on, let me pull that up. As these three over here,
I have no words for that. Is that one of the characters from To Kill a Mockingbird? What is that?
Boo Raggedy?
I think that is.
Wait, hang on. We need to check that.
All right. I thought you were trying to say
Boo
like,
Corrigan. Boo Corrigan was his name. He was the part of the. He was the CFP selection committee chair, and he was the one.
Yeah.
He was the one who said on
Boo Raggedy's
ESPN College
a doll.
Game Day that without Jordan and Travis, they are a different team, and that was pretty much the basis of his whole argument.
Okay, I got something for that.
So
Okay.
go ahead. Yeah.
So Alabama
Get that
didn't
censor
start.
button ready.
I was going to say Alabama is a different team with Jalen Milroe, a quarterback. They had to struggle to beat Auburn. They had to have a miracle to come back and beat Auburn. They had to have several calls go their way, and then hope Georgia messed up in several ways to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. So in that regard, Alabama is a different team as well. And Alabama didn't do what Florida State did, and that's win all their games.
Exactly.
Because here's the thing, and correct me if I'm wrong. If the roles were reversed and Florida State went 12-1 and Alabama was 13-0, they'd put Alabama in without a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
It shows that they have
that's
SEC
true.
bias. They have SEC bias. Now, I understand that in saying that, one of Georgia's national championships in the last couple of years, we got in because we were an at-large team and we didn't win our conference championship. I understand that.
But the competition wasn't as
But
bad.
that's the thing. The competition wasn't what it was this year. There was a possibility that there was 4 undefeated teams in the playoff, and the fact that of the 4 teams that are in the playoff, one of them, or one of the undefeateds that was left, is left out and was a Power 5 conference champion, that's wrong. They should be ashamed of the actions that they committed on Sunday, because that is just wrong. It shows that why do we even play the games if you're not going to fairly judge everybody? And that's why you shouldn't judge at all. You should have playoff systems.
Yeah, I agree completely. But Adam, you said something on Sunday that blew my mind, and I want you to repeat it, because it basically told the whole story.
And for context here, Florida State fan, by the way, is Adam.
We feel for you, man.
Don't run ahead.
Rookie, I will clarify. I'm not honestly not like a diehard by any means, but I'm a Florida State fan, right? So just the craziest thing I don't understand. Right, actually, here I'll go to what Chris was saying first. All right, I remember we were watching the selection show, right?
Yeah.
At the bottom, they show what they use for criteria.
Exactly.
Right?
I know where he's going.
I see at the bottom there.
With this.
I see at the bottom there. It says they factor in injuries, and I'm like, first off, that's the first time I've ever seen that before, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Because if that was the case, was it 10 years ago when Ohio State got in? They shouldn't have got in.
Exactly. We shouldn't have got in. We were on our third
I'm watching the show. I read that. And I'm like, I know exactly where this is going. Considering they have to point this out, right? I know exactly where this is going.
State's about to get screwed. Yeah.
And
no, go ahead.
yeah, and what I'll say about this is it's supposed to be the best 4 teams,
And that's not what happened.
Well, I think it is, because Florida State deserved to be in that.
They did.
They did deserve
they're one
that.
of the 4 best teams.
They deserved it, but
y'all
they
not
are
gonna like
not
my
one of the
opinion.
best 4 teams if Jordan Travis is not on the field. And that is not their fault, and they got screwed. And Adam, I am so sorry for that.
Yeah,
but they did not deserve to be in the playoffs.
If you want me to be completely honest here, I feel like if they could have had a better offensive performance in the Louisville game, I feel like we probably had a better chance of going in there, because obviously defenses have really kept them in. I mean, they only let up 6 points to Louisville.
And this just goes to show you that I loved the idea when they came up with the playoff, but it should have never been 4 teams.
Absolutely.
No.
It should have. If it's not going to be 16, don't do it.
This should have been at the very least 8.
No,
because
16. You got to have at least some parity there. 16.
Because if you have 5 Power 5 conference champions back in the day when Pac-12 decided that they were going to still
Stay
be
alive,
around. They were still going to be around. You have 5 conference champions, no matter what their record is. And then you have 3 at-large teams. That's where a potential UCF comes in a few years ago. Whether maybe this time around, Georgia stays
sneaks in there, yeah.
You have 3 at-large teams. 4 is not enough. It was never enough.
No,
I'm glad
it's
they're
not.
going to 12.
I remember me and Jalen last night, actually, we were looking at the what would have been a 12-team bracket, and that was a really good bracket. It was competitive the whole way down. Limiting it to 4 it sucks. It creates what happened this year, of course, right? So much controversy.
The Alabama Invitational.
I would love to see Missouri in the playoffs.
But I
They
will
did
say
a good
this,
game.
though. If we're gonna be honest, now the Florida State gets screwed, absolutely. Was Florida State about to get their behinds whooped by Michigan? Probably.
100%.
That college
I don't
football
think
committee,
they would have.
they would have gotten whooped either way, because that's why Michigan was looking at the screen when they saw Alabama. They were like, "Oh, there goes our free win." But at the end of the day, that was not the playoffs' right to take away what they have worked all that hard.
I do
That's
agree.
actually
with
a good
you.
way to put it. That's a good way to
because
put it.
let's be real. Were they going to lose how Notre Dame got in a few years
Probably,
ago?
yeah.
They would have gotten whooped.
It wouldn't have been as bad as what Georgia did to TCU last year, but it
We
would
would
have been
hope
a bit more
not, but we'll
competitive.
never know that now.
Exactly.
We'll never know that. But it's a shame. It is. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that it is expanding. At least this is the last year that we have to deal with that type of
hopefully.
Hopefully
this won't happen again with 12
furthers
teams.
the Alabama
If you think it's not going to
Invitational.
happen again with 12 teams,
It's going to.
It's going to happen.
That's why I said hopefully.
Can't wait for the
Hopefully.
first 2-win team to
Yeah.
win a natty.
Yeah.
Now
Well,
that
here's
we're
the
gonna
thing
go
with that,
12.
with 12 teams. There will always be a team that everybody thinks that they should have made it that doesn't make it. There's
And that's
always
exactly
going to be
why
the
you need to have
outlier.
regulations like the NFL does, so that way they can quit their.
There's always going to be an outlier, but I would rather the outlier be maybe like a 2-loss Kentucky team rather than an undefeated Florida State team or a 1-loss Georgia team that only lost that game by, 3 points?
Yes, by 3.
Yep.
We have so many good teams this year that should be fighting for a championship, but the big issue is there's only 4 spots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Going back to this whole 4-spot selection thing here. Of course, one of the other criteria is strength of schedule, right? I really don't understand how Alabama was ranked 5th. Their strength of schedule was ranked 5th, right?
Yeah.
And of course, not saying that Florida State was good,
they're trying to give them some praise because they lost to Texas earlier.
But Florida State was ranked 55th.
Yeah, which honestly, that kind of makes sense. I would say it wasn't a super strong schedule, but 5th for Alabama is wild. I mean,
here's my thing. When you look at their out-of-conference schedule, I mean, Florida State, in my opinion, had a tougher out-of-conference schedule. Now, in conference, obviously, Alabama had a tougher schedule.
Right.
I don't think anyone would say that.
Yeah,
but when you look at
SEC.
the teams that you have a choice in playing, look at some of the teams outside of Texas. Who did Alabama play?
South Florida. And here's the thing, I remember
they struggled in that game.
Yeah, they kept it close. I'm like,
Now, who did Florida State play? They played LSU, who they throttled. Okay, throttled.
That's an SEC opponent.
Then they beat 2 SEC opponents in Florida. Now I understand Florida's going through a downgrade right now, down year.
as you're sitting next to a Florida fan.
Yes, he's well aware of
Yeah,
this.
I'm well aware. We're not even going to a bowl this year.
But my thing is, Alabama's biggest win, biggest win. Their biggest out-of-conference thing right now is they lost to a conference champion in the Big 12. Florida State didn't lose a game, and they beat 2 SEC teams.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And the other thing talking about sorry Chris. The other thing talking about SEC here, didn't ACC opponents weren't they 6-4 against the SEC this season?
They were.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly my point.
Just, I feel for
Florida State, you did nothing wrong. The playoff committee is awful.
We feel really bad for you. Hopefully y'all are as good next year, and you guys got a chance to go compete for a natty next season because there's plenty of spots.
And if you were playing any other team in the country, I would be wanting you to throttle. But 13-1, here we go.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam.
what did you call it?
We'll see you guys
Jack?
out of Miami.
The People's
I
National
call it the
Championship?
People's National Championship. It's the one everyone wanted to see.
Oh my god.
So if anything, moving on now.
I'll give also before we wrap that, Jack. We are very proud of you on behalf of all of us that you did not run from the conflict of
like
Georgia
Jalen
losing.
did.
Yeah,
Jalen.
I was
like a
not
man.
in a good mental
Yeah.
state
Hey,
at
yo.
that time. I was
Yeah,
not.
that's the reason Jack didn't get a cold open like Jalen did, because he didn't run from it.
Exactly.
I actually got out ahead of it. If you'll remember, I was the first one in the group chat.
You were out ahead of it. I was wallowing in my own self pity.
Yeah, I remember you guys were telling me like, Jalen. Yeah, when Ohio State lost, Jalen did not respond. We thought he might die.
Dipped and I did not come back until
I
later
just
that
want to tell you
night.
how long this man disappeared. I left the hotel to go commentate 2 basketball games at 1:30 and during the Michigan Ohio State game. Okay, it was by the time I got back, had a meal, showered, got dressed for bed. It's like 8:30 before we hear from Jalen. I'm like, dude, it's 7 hours. Like
I texted back during the Georgia Tech game.
Of the what?
It was the Georgia Tech game. That's when I responded.
That's my point.
Dude, how long were you crying for? Did you just not respond for
I was crying.
Hold on,
You got to put the Tyrese crying meme in there.
I was
Like it was so bad.
But speaking of bowl games, we're going to talk about now where is everyone's team in the postseason. Thoughts about the upcoming bowl matchups. Now for me and my Buckeyes,
Hey, Kyle, make sure you say yours really out loud.
Kyle, what's yours? What's yours real quick? Because you're the quickest one. So what's yours?
I will be enjoying all the other bowl matchups.
Listen, he better enjoy the
cereal
frosted.
bowl.
Yeah, but the frosted flakes bowl.
At the very
not
least, at
great.
least I don't have to watch my Gators lose again.
At least until next year.
Of course.
Yeah, but for me, my Ohio State Buckeyes, we're playing Missouri in the Cotton Bowl on December 29th. I think that's going to be.
I'm so disappointed
That's
that
gonna
my
go down
riff
maybe.
of saying enjoy the Peach Bowl did not come true.
Yeah.
I am so disappointed.
So I think that's going to be a good matchup that probably goes down to either a 1-possession game or score differential by 3. The next one I want to talk about, this is between Adam and Jack as the 5
People's
and 6
National
seed.
People's
Championship.
National Championship.
FSU versus Georgia in the Orange Bowl, one in the New York 6. How do you guys think this game is going to go?
I mean, I'll let Adam go first.
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure, because especially with that, of course, it is a factor. Obviously, not having Jordan Travis, but I would really like to see how Florida State plays in this game, because it'll be kind of a tell. Because honestly, I agree with Chris. I don't know if they're beating Michigan if they went to the playoff, right? But this can be a tell how they play against one of the top teams. I'm not sure how it's going to go. They're really going to have to probably get Benson going if they want to have a chance,
Right.
But
I will say this. I think Georgia will win, and I've checked some of the chats in the Georgia fan bases. They think that they're gonna throttle Florida State, and to that I would say you're absolutely delusional, because I mean there's something that Florida State did this year that Georgia did not.
Yeah.
And that's win all their games thus far. So by taking it lightly, that's not going to help the Bulldogs at all. Do I think Georgia's a little bit better than Florida State? Yes, because obviously Travis not being there, it does not help Florida State, but I still think Florida State's a good team.
Yeah.
I think Georgia's going to win, but I think it's a very close game.
I think what this kind of reminds me of is like, I can't remember what year it was that Georgia missed the playoff, and they had like.
It's been a few years, Chris.
Well, like,
you got to be more specific.
I know, but like they had like missed it by like they were like 5 or like 6. Like they had like they were just outside.
The year that they should have been in.
Right.
Because
that year,
that was the year that we was potentially going to get
Bowl.
Georgia, Alabama 3.
Right. And it was like, I think it was like they played in the Sugar Bowl, and I think like they like lost that game or something like that.
You talking about when we played Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 2019.
19? Yeah, I was going to say 19.
Yeah, because we ran into LSU, and that is one of the few times I ever watched the Georgia game that I wasn't even mad that we lost. I was like, watching that 2019
LSU team. LSU
steamrolled.
And also, that's a great extra. And we're talking about one of the greatest college football teams ever.
It is the best team in my lifetime, and I believe the second best team of this millennium. That team.
Yeah, that would be a great extra.
So the last bowl game I want to talk about with Chris over here. Your Duke Blue Devils are facing against Troy in the 76 Birmingham Bowl.
Minus Mike Elko.
How do you feel about that?
Oh man, I'm proud of my Duke Blue Devils to not being just known as a basketball school. It is quite nice to see them in a bowl game. Fun fact: the last time that I can remember, like really caring for Duke football like that, because we haven't been that good, but the last time I went to see them play against Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and I was sitting the second row from the end zone in the south corner, and their quarterback at the time would be Giants legend Daniel Jones. And
Danny Derps.
Yeah. Little did I know that he would be a first round quarterback. And it's just like,
I think a lot of us thought that, Chris.
I don't think any of us did. Because I ended up like talking to him after the game, because like they were in, celebrating with the crowd, because I was sitting in the Duke section, and they were like, it didn't strike me as like, oh, he's going to be a first like NFL quarterback, let alone a first rounder. So, that was like the last time I really cared for him. But I'm proud of my Duke Blue Devils. I wish we could have knocked off UNC, because, UNC deserves to just the burn internally. I hate UNC.
Golly! I didn't even say that about Alabama. Oh my God.
So I think listen, UNC is the University of Spoiled Children. They are like USC on steroids.
I was going to say, wouldn't University of Spoiled Children be USC, Chris?
They would be, but the UNC is like the USC of the South. Like UNC is full of the most spoiled
of the Southeast coast.
Yeah, that's where all Jordan fans lives. They just like, oh my God, I love Michael Jordan, and I'm like, you spell Michael Jordan. Like I can't with that.
But listen, we're about to wrap this show up. This is our last show of the semester.
Yeah, man. We appreciate all of y'all that have listened to us.
All 9 of you out there. We appreciate your support.
We appreciate it.
We definitely appreciate the support.
We got big things coming spring semester,
everybody.
But it's about to be, honestly, getting ready to start. 2024 is the last dance for many of us. Jack, you're graduating in the spring, so I know that we got.
Somehow you're graduating in the spring too.
No, I'm graduating fall. I'm fall.
Yeah, me and Chris.
Yeah,
me and Chris are out in the fall.
Oh man, you got delayed again. The red shirt senior over here. All right.
Oh, buddy, red shirt.
Wow, man.
But listen, for me,
I don't think you guys have issues with red shirts. It hasn't gotten you guys anything so far.
Oh boy.
Well, that's how we're gonna end it. This is how we're gonna end the show, man. We appreciate all of y'all that listen to us. All 3, 4, 5 of you that listen to it and repeat it. But we thank y'all, man. And remember, man, if you can't take the heat, what makes you think you can survive the Inferno? We love y'all. Y'all have a great holiday season.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, man.
Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Blazers.
Happy New Year. And welcome to 2024. And as always, go Birds and go Blazers. And go Craig. Tell the people something.
Bye, Felicia.
Merry Christmas.